And here we go. Welcome to the You Had Me at Halo podcast, where we always have discussions around one of gaming's most storied franchises, and where today we get to speak to a very special first-time guest. And with we've finally forged our way to Halo's restart, and we have a lot to talk about. So really excited to get into this. But before we do, let's start with just meet everybody on today's panel. First, I'm going to start off with our special guest, Mr. former 343 dev, admin for Forgehub, and Halo Forger extraordinaire, Spartan Nick, aka Sir Iron Wolf, aka the Nick that XboxEra does not need to fact check through an entire podcast. How's it going? How's it going,
Doing
Mr.
well.
Nick?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolute
Awesome.
pleasure.
It's so awesome to have you on here, and you're going to be bringing a lot. So today we're gonna get into a lot of your history and really just a lot of the knowledge that you have around the franchise, and maybe you can give us some hints about how on point we've been with our.
I don't tell them anything. I don't tell them a thing. Nothing.
We don't, and we intentionally don't ask John anything because we don't want to get everybody sued by Microsoft. So that's kind of been the rule. But speaking of John, okay, so John, Mr. Spartan John, aka Mr. Sikamikanico, thanks for coming on. This is now your third time with us, and I know
Feels good.
You can talk again. You can finally talk about.
It's so much nicer being on a show where I'm not technically the main host, so I can let loose. I can relax a little bit. Nearly got a small delay due to a small childcare emergency, but it's all worked out for the best. And it's an absolute pleasure to be joined by Nick. Last time I saw you was in Seattle. 343.
Yeah. Was that like 2020 or something?
2020, just as the lockdowns were coming into fruition, we were like running out of the state.
Because Washington was also one of the first places to get hit by it. So.
It was, yeah. I think from the US perspective, Washington State was the first death, I think, of confirmed COVID like casualty.
I think so, yeah.
Just as we were flying out. So I actually left on the day, I think, that it got announced that, hey, you guys are all working from home now. Bye. The carnage started for the 343 guys. But it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. And Abe, thank you for letting me come and be your co-host for the evening. It would be remiss, of course, not to mention the fabulous Don Cabeza, aka Jesse, hiding in the background, making things look beautiful for us today. Because Nick's brought some things. Nick's brought some stuff to show. So we'll get into that in a little bit.
Goodies.
Yeah, but and actually, I was going to introduce Jesse next, but
Oh, that's right. I'm just I'm the host with the most fun. I'm getting back into the swing of things now.
He's like, this doesn't feel right. Xbox.
It's just natural to me.
Give me that mic.
It's just natural. I'll be like that guy taking the mic off stage. No, I want to speak.
It's all right. I can just sit back and listen, and then I'll just be able to jump in with questions where I want to, try to get some of the dirt, get some of the fact checks on our own theories. Right? Like over the last few weeks, months, we've had a lot of speculation. We've been in speculation town a lot, and and there's been other people that have claimed to really know things, and so it's really nice to just have somebody that actually has been there. And I'm just going to kind of read his body language to kind of like. I'm going to reading everything everything he does there to see. I'm going to ask him questions, and then see if he gets a little bit.
Having to keep having and hey, let's have that conversation first. So Nick, you're on the Forge Council, right? We're allowed to say that we're on that now.
Yep.
Right. So
I'm on Forge Council.
But for 2 years, up until it was actually revealed, we had to just stay completely silent, and it was moderately infuriating, wasn't it?
Yep. Well, it's because also too, when it first came out, or when a lot of the people were first added to it, I was still at the studio, so at that time I was able to be open and be like, oh yeah, I work on Forge,
yeah,
and so I was able to say a little bit more. I'm not too much. It was mainly just I can confirm that I think at the time it was I can confirm them on Forge, and I confirm we have undo and redo, and that's like
Yeah,
that
those
was
are
it at the time.
the two wonderful nuggets of information. You can
Yeah.
undo things, and Forge exists. The end.
Mhm. Yep. And then after my contract ended, I was able to get brought onto the Forge console because I was still like a part of that group because I was a tester. So whenever you guys found bugs, I would have to actually like put them into our database and then try to repro them. So
Fun.
yeah.
The fun part of game development, then. The
Yep.
So if we find bugs and they're still there, we blame you guys. Is that how this works, or is it
Yep,
more
yeah.
like can't fix, won't fix? I don't know.
Wide range. So I guess to I guess backtrack a little bit.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, I or at the top of the thing we said I was a 343 dev. So I helped out mainly with um what was it with Forge, and I was a tester. I was actually like the Forge tester for majority of the time. I was the Forge team was up. Um, Eventually we got more Forge testers and stuff, but they actually hired me on before the Forge team started, and actually got up
Amazing.
and running. So I
So
was
and
helping out with other stuff.
so for you, so I guess let's go back to the beginning. So Halo 3 released and Forge was there, right? So I mean the beginning, like let's
Yeah,
not
oh,
start
yeah.
with Halo CE. We've done all the Halo CE and Halo 2 stories there.
Well, I think that's a good place to start, though. Really, so here we go. This is host fight. John.
Oh, okay, fine.
No, I'm
no
kidding.
worries.
I'm kidding. But I am curious because somebody who's obviously was involved with Halo before you worked at 343, before with Forgehub. Like where did it begin for you? What was like when did Halo become something that was part of your life or just part of you
More than
as
just
a
a
gamer?
game.
Yeah.
More than just a game.
For me, I actually remember the moment of like when I got fascinated with like game development and stuff. So I started with in Halo 2. It's
Okay.
actually like my friend in it was elementary school at the time. Was just like, "Oh, have you played Halo 2?" It's like, and I was like, "No, what's that?" It's like, "Oh, it's a cool game," and the whole rigmarole. Um, and then I went and asked my parents. I was like, "Hey, can we get this game?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't know. It's rated M and all that." I'm just like, "Well, I watched Dad play Doom and Duke Nukem and like Red Faction and stuff. It's
I
probably not
love
as bad
Duke
as
Nukem.
those."
I loved Duke
Yeah,
Nukem as a kid, man. The little booby
oh yeah,
trap
it
things
was.
where you truck out the mine and then wait in the vent and someone would walk in the room and memories. But anyway, sorry, I digress. I just
Oh,
had to throw that out there.
yeah, it's so yeah, I grew up doing that, so it was kind of an easy sell to my parents. And then since that, it was just like played that almost nonstop. And then eventually, once I got a little bit older and kind of understood the campaign a bit more, I went back and actually bought Halo 1 because I was like, oh, I want to see where it all started. So played that, and yeah, eventually then Halo 3 came out, and but actually, because I teased earlier, the moment that I got more interested into game development and kind of was like, oh, this, piqued my interest because I'm an artist at heart. I think a lot of forgers are.
Yeah.
So it was in the level where I think the first level where you play as the Arbiter in Halo 2, and you're on that station that's like, falling through
through
the
the
sky.
gas giant. Yeah, threshold.
Yeah.
Threshold, I
And
think is the level.
it was like going through one of the earlier like hallways, and I was just like looking at the hallway like wall, and seeing the pipes in the thing. I was just like thinking to myself, someone like made that, and it's like, how many people are actually stop and like look at the environment and like appreciate it. And I just like remember thinking like that would be cool to like be able to do that one day,
Yeah.
have someone stop and then look at something that I made and then just appreciate it. And that's kind of like the first spark. And then Halo 3 came out with Forge, and I spent countless hours in Forge. I have to make multiple accounts to just host all my maps, because at the time you can only save like 100 maps, which seems like a lot, but to to people who like to create things, it's like it's not a
It's
lot.
not enough.
No. So I would be like, just kind of get in the mood and just like start forging away, and then it'd be like, oh, I really like this, and then realize, and then the message would pop up saying like, oh, you have to delete some files. And back then too, if you left the game and didn't save, it was gone. There was no recovering it. Unlike now, where it's like, if you just disconnect, it will have like a recovery or something.
Yeah.
But and so I'd have to like call up my friends and just be like, hey, can you just like hop on Halo real quick and just
Save this
join
map
my
for me.
session, just save it, and while I go and delete, or just like wait in the game for like a few minutes. I'm like, you don't have to do anything, just wait there so I can go and delete something and save it. And yeah, I had a couple other accounts. My dad's account, I would use to like save maps on. And yeah, it was just so I spent so much time in there. And then of course custom games too with all my friends. Like that's mainly what we played, is
Yeah.
just
I think
basically get home, do homework, and then play Halo until our
customs.
parents told us to get off.
Halo 3 was I think, I look at it now, and Nick, I suspect you might be younger than me if Halo 2 is your first Halo. I suspect. Let's be honest. Your beard's got no grey in it. You are.
Oh,
Right?
I have a little bit
younger.
here.
You're definitely younger than Abe, right? So, but Halo 3 for me, I still think it kind of like, a lot of people talk about the golden era of gaming, right? And we look at all the cool things we have now. Like, I wish Game Pass was a thing like when I was a kid, and I probably would have played a lot more. But the golden era of gaming for me was that kind of 2005 to 2008. Halo 3 particularly. There was just so many good, early 20s memories of that I don't, still to this day just haven't been beat. And much like yourself, lots and lots of hours. Do you remember merging? Do you remember like merging, where you'd hold one block and you'd put the block where you want it to be, and force the blocks to be merged? Because merging was never designed. Forge was never designed to be a map creation tool. It was designed to adjust maps and change weapon layouts. It was quick and dirty, and the community is what made it into what it is today. And I guess that leads you further on that journey. So I'll shut up and let you segue into that nicely.
Like I said, I remember when we first and the thing too is, like, when Halo 3 was out, like that was kind of when YouTube was even kind of starting a bit more too. So it's like, nowadays it's a whole lot easier to go online and find a tutorial of how to do things, but back then it was kind of more word of mouth. It's just like how a lot of these tips and tricks spread, or you'd have to like read it in a magazine or something. And it's like but yeah, forging was definitely a lot more difficult back then. And it's always crazy to think of, just like, oh, people go back and think it's like, simpler times, like, why don't we go to that back to that time? And I'm just like, no, I like all these tools and stuff now. When we had the Halo 3 Forgehub contest to remake some maps in for 343, so it was probably about a couple years ago at this point. They were doing some like big updates to Halo 3 on MCC at the time, so they asked us to if we wanted to try to like get a contest going to generate maps for a playlist. And it was funny to hear people complain again about like some of the old stuff that we complained about back in the day. It's like, people trying to do all this stuff. It's a pretty wonky tool set. Things don't always work, even with the upgrades that they made to the tool set in MCC. It's just like, it was still annoying to have to work through. Luckily I was judging, so I didn't have to make a map and struggle through all that, but I definitely heard about all those troubles.
I remember seeing, actually, from an MCC perspective, someone remade Infected Manor, which was the first, like, it was a creation my friend Bart and I made, which was Bart's banner back in Halo 3. And I think it was the first Forge map in matchmaking. And I was like, I logged on to MCC one day and I see someone has painstakingly remade the original version of this house map. And I'm like, who did this? And it was all over YouTube. And I'm like, I have to admit, it looks exactly like for like. So painstaking recreation. But man, I can't imagine going back to the days of no clip, no merging, no textures. What was it? What was the object count in Halo 3 Forge?
Oh,
It was
so
like
low.
750 or something ridiculously
Yeah,
small.
yeah, something absurd that people nowadays would just lose their minds over.
You can't even you can't even make your fireplace with
No, like, man, it's come a long way, right? And
yeah.
you mentioned Forgehub there when you were talking about some of the competitions to recreate that. So, Halo 3 was really, Halo 2 was the spark of creativity. Halo 3 allowed you to actually start tweaking with stuff. How did you end up first at Forgehub? Because I think you were there first before you ended up as a 343 dev, right? So
Yes,
what was
that's correct.
that interesting journey like for you?
So I think I discovered Forgehub through I think it was through a Halo Waypoint post. Because Forgehub and 343 has always had a pretty good relationship, and sometimes they'll like uh showcase some of our stuff in like the old like Halo Waypoint blogs and things like that, or like give us shout outs or whatever. So I forget exactly what it was for. But I stumbled across the website and I was just like, oh, this is like really cool. The place where, a whole bunch of my other like-minded people who enjoy forging or hanging out. It's just like, it seems pretty large. I guess I'll just get in the community. So I think it was like I have the date here. It was sometime in early 2016 when I uh, found the website and started downloading other people's maps, like reviewing them, because I was like, oh, I really want that Forge Critic title that we hand out, and which you usually get for like reviewing people's maps or being a well-known forger and stuff. It's kind of the little emblem that tells you, that what's, you understand your stuff.
Yeah.
And so I would was writing a lot of reviews and feedback for people's map. I was pretty involved in the forums and the shout box, so people kind of got to know me a bit more. And then eventually they put out a call for writers, and I was just like, oh, I'll try becoming a writer and stuff for them, and doing articles and stuff. And like I have experience with these stuff like that, so eventually they brought me on, and this is all kind of part of my plan too. It's like joining Forgehub and seeing that the relationship with 343, I was like kind of going into it. It's like, okay, yeah, here's my inroad. Here's like how I can try to get more known in the community and hopefully get a position one day. So yeah, I worked my way up, and then I think within a couple months, A Chunk, who was the admin at the time, was
I
stepping
remember
down.
Chunk.
Yeah, and yeah, great guy, and
Yeah, lovely guy. He
he
runs
was
Next Level Design now, I think. So I'm actually still
yes,
doing
yes, I believe
something
so.
in that passion. Yeah.
Yep, and he was deciding to step down because he was like, I think like personal stuff or something. But
Yeah.
there was a long time where a short lull where there wasn't really anyone who was going to step up to be an admin, and I was just like, well, I'll be an admin because I a little bit more back history. I used to be involved in the clan community, like the Halo clan community. Just specify that. And so like I kind of was always good at working my way up through those ranks and being like the leaders of the divisions or whatever they call them nowadays. And so I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I have what it takes to be an admin. So I applied for it. Warholic, who's the owner of Forgehub. It's just like, oh yeah, sure. We'll give you a shot. We'll see how it goes. We'll give you this trial period. If you do well, we'll keep you as an admin. and here I am 6 years later.
2 weeks later.
Right.
I had
So-
SpongeBob in my head then.
so-
me.
So to kind of summarize it, it sounds like, a lot of what really brought you here. I mean, this just became your passion, and you were just looking for any way to kind of be close to it, right? Like be close to 343, be close to Halo. I think that's like how I guess that resonates a little bit too, right? Like, right, John? It's like kind of that's like the reason why a lot of people here at XboxEra, it's like we just want to be close to the industry, close to the stuff that we really love. And it's not necessarily, at least for me, it's not about like I mean, it'd be great to have 1 million views, but it's not about that. It's
Hey,
about
we got 2 million views, buddy. We got 2 million views overall since inception. It's not bad. It's not bad.
But
Don't
yeah,
sneeze
no,
at it.
absolutely not. But it is really all about that. It is getting close to those things that you really love. And one of the things you just said, and I do want to stop for just a really quick detour. I think this is a slightly, maybe should have saved it for later, but you touched on, you kind of knew what you were looking for with like what makes a good map and things like that. Is that something that you'd be able to like elaborate a little bit on? Because I think that is all, to me, that's always interesting. Like, how do you know what makes a good map? Or is a good map really just depending on obviously it's going to be dependent on what it's intended for, but like, how do you do that? Like, do you play test them? Is it aesthetics? Like, is it all of it? Like, how does that work exactly?
Yeah,
It's a big question.
Yeah, I was just saying. Yeah, it's a big, because
I know
everyone has their
definitely
own answer for it. I've always been a lot more based on aesthetics. And so when I was doing a lot of those, but when I was doing a lot of the reviews and stuff back in the day, I would just like load up a map. I didn't really know a whole lot of people in the community at that time, so it was like I wasn't really able to get lobbies and stuff going. So I would just load them up by myself, kind of play through and just like simulate in my head just how I think like stuff might play out. And look for more of like the technical aspects, or like good like sight lines, and or if an area seems too cluttered with stuff, that would be like kind of difficult to do the Halo dance, as they call it at the studio.
right.
And then a little bit like look at the aesthetics and stuff too. And I would break everything down into different categories, and just give like overall feedback. And I would look for the maps that I try to look for the maps that were kind of like middle of the road, that were like close to being what I think like nice finished polished products, and then I would try to target those, and then go on to those, try to help people out. And then but I also knew like I was a lot newer to the realm, so I knew I was no expert either, but I was like, maybe I can help with a few things here and there. So like, yeah, it's hard, because I'd say when people go in and everyone has their own opinions about how a map should play, like and like even how to build a map. I'm one of those people that like to go in with a art concept and just like or a theme, and I was like, I want to make this theme, and I'm going to build a map around that, which really isn't the best way to go about it. You should, a lot of times most people would say you should come up with a block out and then build that way, and then build the art around it. But I like doing the art stuff first.
I'm
more
with
fun.
you, Nick. I'm with you, Nick. Like, I think one of the big questions that I've seen a lot of people ask is, I've never dabbled in Forge before, I'm new to it, and with Infinite's Forge coming up, like, how do I get started? And there's some stuff that I think we will talk about, and people will talk about come launch day. Looking forward to being a little bit unleashed on that front. But I'm the same as you. I approach map design like I learn something new every time I make a new map. I love getting feedback, and I think that's one of the things that the Forgehub community in particular became really good at. I remember Max Extra. One of the other,
He was my roommate, by the way.
I'm not sure if he was your roommate. I remember. I'm often used to seeing one of you in the background, and you both got beards, and I'm like, which is that, Nick or Matt? I don't know. Yeah. But I think Max always wears a hat. That's what I remember.
Max always wears a hat. Yep.
but he used to run huge testing lobbies, right? Where and Forgehub, outside of the competitions and stuff, and we'll get into some of the more Forgehubby bits later. But those test lobbies for a lot of new forgers, regardless of skill or quality of map, they would be played and they would receive genuine feedback. Now, whether a person is equipped mentally and emotionally to receive feedback is another point entirely. But what I would say is the Forgehub community overall did an amazing job of actually making sure that everybody had like a little voice and a little piece of feedback from someone that maybe knew a little bit more than them. And to your point about designing a map and people making blockouts and approaching it and immediately thinking about flow and sight lines and how's this going to play, I'm exactly the same as you. I'm going to build a cool castle, and I'll just go off and start just smushing stuff together. I'll start doing art before I've even got a layout finished, and things will just, and then I'll be like, oh, cool. But collaborating with people that know more than you, I think is key. So if you're a great artist and you can find a great level designer who maybe sucks at art, you might find you have a match made in heaven. So that's the kind of areas where I think Forgehub, again, brings those people together, those communities together to start doing cool stuff. So yeah, it's a hilarious thing because no one can answer the question, how do you make a map? It's up to you.
Right.
Go nuts.
So on that point, Nick, you've obviously seen a lot of the feedback from the community. You've interacted with the community, right? So you've seen how things kind of play out, like maybe, and I can imagine, just like anything else, there's probably times you think this thing's going to hit and it doesn't. There's times where something takes off and you didn't expect it. What do you think within the Forge community, at least your Forge community, what did you generally end up finding out? Were people really, was it the aesthetics that was really just drawing people, or was it just the crazy modes? Like what were the things that really resonated, or was it like more of an even split? Kind of talk towards those types of things.
It would probably kind of even split, but I would think probably a little bit more towards like core gameplay. We have like a lot of our competitions or contests and stuff we do have typically been something in the core mode. And because it's usually what people gravitate to build, like 2v2 and 4v4. It's like you see a lot of those maps out there, and I think a lot of people gravitate more towards that. But you do see a good sprinkling of a lot of other stuff though too. We do get like a lot of mini games. Like I'm a big mini game person, and I also like the racing modes. Shout out to Duquesne.
Duquesne.
And so like I've always been fans like that and like the more artsy kind of stuff, because like 4v4 for me it's like yeah it's fun, but I want to like play something, or I want to be in a map that's like cool, has a cool environment and everything. So but yeah, I would say I think the community leans a little bit more towards probably like the more traditional modes and like and map stuff.
Yeah.
So more of the block out, they start with the blockouts and then the aesthetics. Even though like when we're seeing right now is like everything online is, whoa, that's pretty. That's pretty.
The correct way to refer to these particular types of players is sweaty tryhards. Right? Stop being so competitive and have some fun. No, I'm kidding. I like horses for courses, right? Everyone's got their flavor of Halo, like ice cream that you love and enjoy. My favorite flavor is Forge. To my detriment, because you might go to build a map and then you suck at playing on it. It's often the curse, the Forger's curse. You start shooting someone and you're trying to fly off into the air and manipulate the blocks under them. It's not part of the game in that aspect. So, but when we look now, so we've done Halo 3, Forgehub existed, you snuck in, you're on the admin team for Forgehub. How did you make that leap from admin of a community, interacting, helping people, driving creativity? How did you make that leap over to 343, over to Seattle, where you're actually helping bring the game to life?
This is
this is a tale. Let's strap in.
Oh yeah. It's it's a wild ride. So it kind of started with like I knew that they were starting to like shirts for people and set out the uh um job openings and stuff like that. This was like around 2017. And I messaged War one day. I was just like, because I knew he was a bit closer and had connections and stuff. I was just like, hey, how would I reach out to them to like let them know that I'm interested? And it's just like, oh, just message the head of the studio. And I was just like, I'm like, what? And it's like, you can't just do that. It's like, no, just do that. I was like, okay. So I ended up emailing Chris Lee, who because with our connection with Forgehub, we have access to like contact information and stuff too, like just because the relationship we have. And so I had his email and emailed him and like, hey, Forgehub admin looking, for a job. And for those that don't know, Chris Lee was like the head of uh I forget the specific title, but he was one of the heads and like mainly over like all of like the shooter aspects
Yeah.
and like I think just a couple steps below Bonnie or something. I'm not sure on how that, but he was like one of the main head people.
And a very
And
nice guy, it has to be said.
oh yes, oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I lost my phone when I was in Seattle in 2020, and I had to borrow Chris Lee's phone and use and log into the Samsung Find My Mobile, and it was sitting somewhere on one of the minibuses that took us to some restaurant. I was like, "Where's my phone?" Like full on panic, like I'm in a country that isn't my country. Where's my phone? Like, but he was very kind and he helped me out, so I like him.
yeah. He was like always a pleasure to talk to. Uh and everything. It's just like eventually, yeah, he got back to me. It's just like I think it was at first something like, oh, we don't I don't know if there's any positions open, let me check. And I was like, at that point, I was just like, oh, I'll probably never hear an email, hear back from him. Because like, I'm a nobody who messaged
Yeah.
his like work email. And it's like, but he did get back to me about uh that saying that they wanted me for the forge position and that they but they didn't have it open yet. So they're going to put me on as a tester for the helping develop the engine, the slip space engine. And so he got started going through all those hoops of like the official stuff of actually like working with the contract company to accept the contract, all that. Which that interview process was like, I was still worried, but they basically told me like towards the end, it's just like, yeah, I mean, you basically have the job already. Like, this is just a formality because, like,
Wow.
you got a recommendation from like the head of the studio, so of
Oh,
course
wow.
you're gonna get it. So I was like, awesome. But I ended up like having to talk to the recruiter at the time of just like, okay, I'll be out there. I think it was like sometime in September. It's like I'm setting up. Basically, within a month, my whole life just was like, okay, well, so I live in Toledo, Ohio. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
like going all
Not
the
too
way
far
across.
from here.
I was gonna
I'm
say,
in
I
Detroit
think
area.
yep. I was like, I think where that is. So so it's like I have to move across the country. So set up all that and like within the span of a few weeks, I basically uprooted my life, put everything in a storage container, and then started shipping it across the United States. And like right before that, I was talking to the recruiter, and she was like, "Oh, just send me back like what time you think you'll be out there." So did that. Didn't hear a confirmation, but I was like, I was too excited, didn't think nothing of it. Move across the country with my friend, because I convinced him and asked him if he wanted to. I was like, "Hey, I'm moving out there." He was kind of working in a factory job, so he wanted to do something new. So I was just like, if you want to, it's up to you. I'm not forcing you. So we drove across the country, got to Seattle. On the way there, I kept on trying to call and get confirmation. I was just like, "Hey, I'm gonna be in town then. Like, where's it at?"
Panic
Get to Seattle,
stations.
still nothing. And I'm just like, okay, like what's going on? Um, like I just spent a couple $1,000 to like come across the country. Same thing with my friend who like paid for all the hotels and food along the way. because I was paying for the storage container. He put all of his stuff in there too. But luckily during this time, I was also going through the steps of because Tom French reached out to me shortly before, like as I was packing up stuff, like, hey, we want you for this other position too, as a level level designer, like Cliff, or Black Picture, as some people know him.
Yeah.
And so it's like that which as a forger, getting an email from Tom French at the time was just like cloud nine, because I'm like,
Yeah.
holy
I
crap,
can
this dude
imagine.
is like
Ledge.
the dude for Forge.
Yeah.
And to hear him say that, like, they passed my portfolio around the studio and enjoyed it and want to offer me another spot, I was like,
Wow.
this is awesome. So I had to go through like designing like a map or whatever, all trying to do all this while packing up everything and getting it all submitted in like a couple days. So went through that whole process, was waiting for a while, because sometimes that interview stuff takes a while. Eventually, when I am in Seattle, I what was it? We're in a hotel rooms, just kind of jumping between different hotels, still waiting on confirmation of like if I'm gonna get this testing job that apparently I was like approved for, and having like a couple interviews with Tom French and a couple other people on the MP team. Unfortunately, didn't end up getting that. I think I just got beat out by a couple of the other guys. And I remember like messaging Tom and being like, "Hey, I'm supposed to have like this other position. Haven't heard anything about it yet." Because at this point it's been almost a month. Like of just from when I started driving across the country all the way to uh this moment. And I was like basically running out of money, and kind of at the end of the strings there, because I was just like thinking that everything's gone now. This is like this opportunity is like shattering in my hands. And he ended up like, okay, let me find out for you and all that. End up getting a message from Jeremy Fisher, who was one of the people who helps like a lot with the test. He's like one of the main heads there for like that department. End up getting a message from him and being like, yeah, you're supposed to be here. Like, let me light some fires and find out like why you aren't, like, no one's reached out to you. Like, this is not acceptable. Um, and and so he finally got some stuff going. And a little bit before that too, I was bugging Tom a little bit more leading up to that, and I ended up like messaging Tom too, be like, hey, sorry I keep on bugging you so much. And it's just like, no, dude, like it's totally understandable. And then he told me like a little anecdote about like when his first time in the studio or in the game industry, where he was basically relentlessly like always like asking to uh um like updates on like to the company that he was like trying to get into. Um and that like you just kind of have to be persistent, and it's like good to be persistent, especially for something something like this.
Yeah.
So it was like a like pretty still cloud nine kind of stuff. It was just like, hi, talking to Tom. But yeah, eventually they ended up getting me into the like got back in contact, and then started to actually work at the studio. But even for a month though, after working at the studio, at the time when when I got the call, just like, yeah, I'm confirmed in. My friend at that point was kind of getting worried and stuff too, because like he hasn't found a job out there, and he was like kind of worried. I think his like mom was like telling him to come back, so he ended up dipping. And in Seattle, it's very expensive to live on your own, and
Yeah.
a testing position does not pay well at all.
Yeah.
So
It's yeah.
yeah, it's so for anyone looking to become a tester and stuff, if you can get remote, do that. Or go somewhere cheaper, because or know your worth at least, because the testing positions in Washington unfortunately do not pay well. And So yeah, I was like basically not going to be making any money. Actually, I think if I were to work at McDonald's, I think I would have actually been making more. Like no
Jesus.
joke.
Wow.
And
And you guys are like, in my opinion, some of the unsung heroes
Yeah.
of games.
Mhm.
Like, don't get me wrong, artists and level designers and engineers that code everything, all of that fun stuff. But if you guys aren't around, games ship broken and then they fail, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And yet, to hear, I mean, that's a bit of a bummer, but often it is the foot in the door, right, to lead to
Mhm.
the next step and the next step and the next step. Like I think a lot of people that are considered veterans in the industry started their days in QA, right?
Yep. Yeah. It is easier to get in. It's definitely easier to get in as a foot in the door, which like, it's good for that. Uh, with contracts, it is harder to like jump up, which is what I ended up running into. Like, unfortunately, with the contract situation in Washington, you have to like wait 6 months before you can apply somewhere else.
Yeah,
And
tenure rules, baby.
yeah, and when you get paid like nothing and aren't able to save up, it's not really doable.
Right.
But so before I even got a apartment, I was living in my car in
Wow.
uh the parking lot of the Microsoft building I was working in. So which
Whoa.
luckily a lot of Microsoft buildings have showers and stuff too. So I had card access. I could go in whenever I wanted and be able to take a shower and do all that kind of stuff. And
Man,
uh
that's
but
passion though coming through. Like
yeah.
going through that grueling. Like I mean, I get it in terms of like, yep, that is the foot in the door, and Seattle's an expensive place to live, but I don't know if I could do it. Like cars are uncomfortable to sleep in. I've done it
Yeah.
a few times. Usually it's
Mhm.
half cut. It's not
Yeah.
fun. It's not
Yeah.
fun at all.
Nope, not at all. That's but I'm glad that so originally I was gonna buy I have like a Ford Fusion now, but originally I was gonna buy a Volkswagen Beetle, and I'm glad I went with the Ford Fusion, which has a lot more
Bit more
room.
room.
So
Oh my goodness.
but yeah, and it was like starting to get into like the beginning of November, and I was still in my car. So I would basically turn it on. When I would leave, I was also still going to school at the time too. I was doing online
Oh my
schooling for my
god.
video game art and design degree, and finishing up that. So I would basically go to work, uh, then go to the library to finish up schoolwork, then head over to like McDonald's or something, um, and then drive back to the parking lot. Kind of set up my phone to like watch some shows and stuff like that uh, on like Amazon or whatever, and then go in the back and kind of set up my tent and like block out all the windows, and then fold the seats down and just sleep. And then,
Wow.
yeah, as it got closer to November, it was definitely starting to get colder.
You get a bit
But
nippy in that car, huh? I mean,
yep,
man, that's kind of crazy. So you're there, your foot in the door. Like I presume that situation got a bit easier as time went on and kind of got resolved itself, right? Because I mean,
yeah,
when I spoke, I think when we've joined calls and I've seen you in the background with Max, it was definitely in a building. So I
yes,
just,
yeah.
just want to double check.
Yep, yeah. Yeah, eventually I was checking out all the different like apartment, websites and stuff, and eventually I went to Craigslist because I was that desperate and um and found someone that was like within a price range that I, could afford. And um luckily like him and I clicked. He ended up saying that I was the only person to like actually answer all the questions that he like put out. So he was and we had a lot of similar interests and stuff. So it was so I was grateful that uh that he was my roommate, because he also introduced me to his friend group. And so now not only did I have a place to stay, but I had like new friends and like things like that too out there. And they, took would invite me to their parties. I think I went up to Leavenworth with them, which is like this German town, and which has like also a whitewater rafting nearby. So they took me to that one time. So like,
Nice.
I was,
I'm
I was
alive.
glad that I found them.
So,
Yeah.
so does being a Halo dev at least get you into some cool parties?
the
Go wearing a branded. Don't worry, ladies. I work
I
on Halo.
I would definitely like wear my my shirt and stuff around, like my Halo shirts and things around that said like dev and all them on the back. And you would get some people would be like, oh, you work on Halo, and it's like, yeah. It moving back to Ohio, it's like, you know, you get a little bit more of that shock factor from people here
Mhm.
because they don't expect someone like
Right.
that here in, you know, Toledo.
Seattle's
So
different, right?
yeah, Seattle, they have a lot more of those people running around, so it's a bit more of an everyday occurrence.
So Nick, kind of stepping back, you like, so this was 2018, right? Is when you started doing all that?
17.
17. Okay.
2017. Yep.
So they were just, because that's the other thing that kind of crossed my mind. Sounds like, you said that when you originally, went out there did seem to be like a lot of confusion and things kind of, I guess a lot of dust, right? Kind of kicked up in the air. I think that was
Yep.
around the same time that Microsoft was finally kind of, changing things, right? Like they finally got a little bit of money and started to change the structure. So did you ever feel any of that? Like kind of going to 343 right when I guess as 343 was basically the most Microsoft ass developer there was up to that point, right? Like, and you were just kind of coming in as the whole entire division was shifting around. So how did that kind of affect you, or did you feel any of that when you were over at 343? The fact that all this stuff is changing around, or did they kind of stay the same path and say, hey, you know what, we're already like past the point of no return. No matter what else is happening out there, we're going to continue to follow with our previous strategy and continue to go in that direction.
And I'll throw in a caveat. Appreciate if you prefer not to answer any specific details on that point, because I appreciate that could be an awkward question, perhaps.
Yeah.
So I actually came in, I think, right after a lot of like big changes.
Okay.
So just trying to remember back, because I do remember talking to people before at the studio of just like how, like, you know, they're saying like a few months ago things were a lot different. You know, uh the culture and stuff was a lot different and everything, and just like the priorities and stuff. Um so uh it I wasn't a part of like that big shift. I came in afterwards. So like,
Okay.
so when I was a part of it, it was great. Like everyone there was that I was interacted with was, you know, fantastic. You know, not a lot of issues or anything like that. So I think I kind of got lucky after that. I had to go through a lot of shit beforehand, but
Right.
at least I came in at kind of when they were still trying to figure stuff out, or kind of got their ducks more in a row.
Mhm.
Um, uh, so yeah. And then also, John, I wanted to add to the for the story about the why I wasn't getting responded to,
Yeah.
is because apparently the day I found out from someone else who was getting hired went through something kind of similar. The recruiter ended up quitting, and
Oh,
so
jeez.
they didn't
didn't
forward
hand
any of
over.
the so that's why I was in the dark, and
Oh
that's
no.
yeah, because I would call and they still had the answering machine up, and stuff for the person, and I was just like, I thought that was just my calls were not going through or whatever. So yeah, but I just
Oh
wanted to throw
man.
that in there.
Fun
But yeah,
times.
because yeah, and but yeah, I remember when I was there at the studio that like people were talking about how things were definitely different beforehand, and kind of through the whole shakeup and everything, it all settled a bit better. Of
Yeah.
course, you know, there's always going to still be issues along the way, but
Oh
um
yeah.
yeah.
Man.
So you were there. So
Crazy.
you were there the 18 months from then. Is that right?
So actually with my contract, it was, I kind of got a bit lucky.
Okay.
Originally the building I was working in, a lot of the testers were off site. But 343 didn't like that, so eventually we brought the on site because it's just a
Okay.
lot easier to work with people who are on site, especially testers, because you can just go, a dev can just like kind of walk up to you and just be like, hey, can you show me like what you were talking about or like the issue you found or whatever. Um, so and if you are technically considered off site, you don't have a limit on your contract. And like the testing used to be it's not, I don't think it's like that for all positions, but for like testing, it was I think it was like Xbox Reserves is what it used to be called. And the contract was basically, if you, as long as you're off site, it's a perpetual contract. It just renews every year, and you don't have to worry about like, having to wait the 6 months. Eventually they moved us on site and we still had that. And then eventually though, since we were on site and they were still kind of doing it, it was technically like a weird gray area, that Washington State was just like to Microsoft, oh, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So they were going to end our contracts, and then unfortunately, but fortunately, COVID hit, so they extended ours. So I got to stay there for like another year, um, and then eventually I had to, I was forced to leave.
The end of the contract has ended its
Mhm.
stretchable limit.
Yeah, but
so you were. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, but after the contract though, I did go because also with weird contract stuff, I was able to transfer into a specific Xbox testing division that just tests a wide range of Xbox games.
Oh,
And that's where I was
cool.
until I decided I don't get paid enough, and then I moved back home to family and stuff.
Fair enough.
That's cool.
Fair enough. So
Well,
go on, Abe, go on. I won't ask. It's your show. It's your show. It's fine.
No, it's not.
Fine.
It's
Fine.
this is just this is the meta of today's show. It's like who's gets to ask.
I'm
more
sorry,
questions
John.
here,
You've earned this mute. I gotta let Abe get through for once.
No, I did want to make sure before we kind of moved on to some other things. So obviously, I was trying to get all the dates lined up. So it sounds like you were there during times when a lot happened, right? A lot, you had the 2018 E3 reveal, which I think that was pretty popular. You were there 2019 reveal, the 2020. So I just maybe just highlight a few of the things that kind of stood out as being part of 343 during kind of this roller coaster, I guess, of all the way up to Craig Pace. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, but Mr. Rusting brute face in 2020. But there's definitely some highs, I think, with the community, and then some lows. But a lot was happening, right? So I think as somebody that you have a lot of Halo history that you were at least connected to, so anything that really stands out you want to just talk about with that experience?
I'd say like working with the people. I guess the culture that is at the studio, I think, is like probably my biggest takeaway there. It was just a positive experience through and through. The It was cool to like become friends with like some of these people that I've known about, for years at that point. Like I
Right.
got to talk to Grim a lot more, and have conversations with him. It's like something I would never expect. Same thing at uni. It's like being able to like chat with him and like have lunch with him on occasion. Um, it's like that was always cool. Uh, but like the the studio does a lot to what people don't realize. I guess they always think like, oh, if you go into work, it's just nose to the keyboard, just
The
all day
grindstone.
through. Yeah, and it's like and a lot of these people don't expect or think that we're all humans too, so we have to have fun and enjoyment. So like they would try to do morale events, well, not try to do it, but they would do morale events and things like that. For like we would do tournaments and stuff at the studio, like on some of the old at some of the early versions of multiplayer maps. One, to like kind of see a bit more how they play, but also just have some fun. So I got to participate a few times in some of those tournaments, and that was always a blast.
Yeah.
The Yeah, especially like some of the older or like it was also during a time when things weren't balanced yet. It's like we're still figuring out all that, so
Right.
things are a lot more wild, and they're just like, oh, maybe we should turn that down or whatever.
No, it's really fun.
Yeah. It was like so there's a lot of fun with that, and just and like I said, just it being like a surreal experience too, just like
Mm.
of all these people who are like basically like celebrities. Like
Yeah.
the first time I met Frankie, and I never really like talked to him and stuff because I'm still, even though I've like been working there for so long, I still get shy talking to some of these people. But like with I shared an elevator with Frankie, and I was like, man, I just like shared an elevator with Frankie. Like, this is awesome.
It's funny,
It-
right? I met Frankie once. I did the Halo 5 launch event in London, and I got invited down, and I was going to be on stage with a bunch of YouTubers. I was freaking nobody, right? I was like with Benny Central and someone else, but I turned up early, and I'm there, and I remember reading on this would have been NeoGaf back in the day, right? Frankie, or Stinkles as he was known, he'd posted about hurting his foot, and I turn up and I see this bald guy from behind, and he's like he's got this bandage, he's like got a crutch. I can't remember if he had a walking stick or a crutch, and I was like, Frankie? And he was like, hey. I was like, oh, it's Sikamikanico from how you doing? I'm here to do the event. And he was like, and then we just started chatting, and it was just like, it was really normal, but it was really like, I get what you mean about that kind of like, there's that guy I've seen on Vidocs, and I've been watching him appear in various forms since 2005 or something, when they announced Halo 2 or whatever, or no, Halo 3, and then suddenly he's there, like just chatting away to him. It is surreal. It's like, oh, it's like talking to a celebrity, but not a TV celebrity or a music celebrity. It's a different form of celeb. It's strange, but yeah, definitely a real thing.
He's shorter in person.
Yes, I felt so good about myself. I was like, I'm short in person. I was like, oh, we're the same height. It's fine.
I actually saw Joseph Staten for I was heading to lunch because we had like a cafeteria right next to the studio, and I just saw him like walking on the sidewalk talking to someone else, and I was just like to myself, I'm like, is that Stan? And then like later on, we like a couple days later, it was revealed to us in studio that like he's joining the team, and I was just like, oh, that's awesome. It's like I never got to like meet with him or chat with him or anything, but I would see him around here and there. But it was just like one of those things too. It's like, yeah, someone I've seen for years, and I just see casually walking on the sidewalk.
Yeah, it's really cool. And one of the things I was going to ask was like, obviously you're there through all of these journeys, and you talk a lot about the morale of the teams, but all this time, working out of your car, building and testing the game, and the morale events, and meeting Halo dev celebs. This entire time, you've still got your Forgehub admin hat on. You're still managing that community, and you're still making content yourself, right? So you're still producing some of your stuff. And I know that we've got a bunch of images, which I'm hoping we can show some of the stuff that has been made.
No, we can't show any of it.
No, spoil sport. He's lying. We're totally going to show some. That's sarcasm. But yeah, like how on earth did you manage to do all these things at once?
Yeah.
And are you okay?
Yeah, I feel like I'm more busy nowadays than I was then. Yeah, it was it definitely was a balancing act. I guess going back to the other side of the country, being a 3-hour difference, all my friends were still here in the Eastern time zone. So I would have kind of a bit more time, like at like I don't know, 7 o'clock Pacific time. A lot of them would get off to go to bed. So after 7, I'd just be like, okay, well, now I can do all this other stuff, and I don't have to worry about like chatting with friends and things like that. I can get a bunch of other projects and stuff done. And honestly, like at the studio too, because with game dev and like testing and all that, it's like sometimes it would be a little bit more. It would be like I could be able to take like breaks or like on the schedule was like a lot more fluid of like, oh, I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
take lunch or whatever now. So sometimes at that I'll just hop onto Discord or whatever and uh, just handle all the Forgehub stuff. Um, Luckily, too, some of that was running by itself, and half the time because I was the admin of Forgehub, I was also trying to help out a lot with the Halo side of stuff. Like on the Discord, I was trying to be active in the Discord and everything. Like I'd have that up while I'm testing out testing out the latest version of Forge and all that, and
Yeah.
so I could kind of multitask. Uh, and so yeah, it was definitely a big balancing act, but I think having that 3 hour time difference from like basically the rest
Helped.
of my friends and family helped a bit.
Yeah, I can imagine. Did you get involved with the Halo 5 sustain team at all in terms of like, because I presume from a Forge perspective, and I kind of want to keep it centered on Forge a little bit today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Community content is key, and we're feeling that now in Halo Infinite. There's a lot of anticipation for Tuesday next week. We've got
Yep.
the winter update coming. Forge for Infinite has been revealed now in all of its glory. We know we had the leaked build where people got to reveal it, and all of us on the Forge Council were sitting there like, but
Yeah.
it's out. It's in the wild. The 343 dev teams have done some really great videos diving into what it's all about. But during that Halo 5 period where dev maps stopped coming, they're moving on to the next game. And the sustain team would obviously look to the community. What's popular? What's trending? What are people making? And pulling that in. As a Forgehub admin, that was obviously also happening to be in the studio. Was that useful to kind of pop your head round into the sustain team's door and be like, "Hey guys, you should see this map. It's pretty cool." Like, did you get to kind of almost do that to a degree, or would they come to you and be like, "What's cooking? Like what's great right now?"
So not too much because also when I was at the studio we had Randy 355
Who's
uh
Blaze?
and Blaze, yep,
Yeah,
who were a part of were actually a part of that team. So um they I didn't really have to pop my head in too much,
that's good. They
but
were
I
paying
definitely
attention.
yeah, but I definitely like talk to them a lot about stuff and kind of see what's going on uh and and I was kind of looking at the sustain team as like a possible like
Next
could I
step.
possibly get into that kind of position and stuff from after testing and all that. So I wasn't really able to, I guess, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think like back. Uh because they did such a good job themselves, like yeah, I didn't really have to worry too much about it. But um I will say though, being someone knowledgeable in Forge, a lot of the other testers really enjoyed me having that knowledge because before I joined the team, not a lot of them had Forge experience, and so they found that really nice and handy when I
How
told
can
them
you
it's like,
test
oh
if
yeah,
you
go out
don't
this
know the
Forge stuff.
tool?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of messing around and luckily guides and all that. I
Yeah,
know
I
when
can
I
imagine.
was testing it out at being the only forger, a lot of it was just spawn something, test out the tools a couple times, and does it crash or like what bugs does it have, but eventually once we got a team lead and all that, I even helped with coming up with like some of the testing processes, and which having that Forge background definitely helped with because um but I think where being the admin and being more integral to like the Forge community helped was being able to talk to like Michael Shore and the other Forge
Yeah,
team members, is like telling them like hey, they're this, yeah, yeah, people are gonna use this in like this kind of way, or like
yeah,
they're gonna this object, I think at like one point there was like an object that I think it was like for the bottom of the trees, they didn't have a bottom like bottom
A
texture.
texture. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
no. We
and
flip those around, baby. We need the
yeah,
roots.
and that's like COVID. It's like, and it's and you know, people who are designing that, they don't have something like that same mentality that like us forges have had to use over the time of like, in order to get the results that we want, we have to use objects in weird ways.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I remember, you know, telling them, she's like, well, no, it's people are gonna flip it over. It's
Yeah.
like it's so having to bug it and then give the bug back. She's like, no, it's by design. I'm just like, what? It's like
It's,
by design.
no.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, and
So
I guess that's a great segue, right? So, going full circle, Forge Hub is where it is now. You're eagerly anticipating the release of Infinite's Forge mode, right? Which is, to be frank, it happens to all Halo games as the wait drags out for the next one, the interest in it and the community starts to die. A lot of the diehards remain, but there's not a lot of activity. But this feels different, and I guess there's two topics that I kind of wanted to cover off. And Abe, feel free to butt in if you feel I'm totally stepping on
No,
your
I
turf
think
here,
no,
my friend.
you're asking the question the right way.
Oh,
I think
okay.
that's where I was
I'm
gonna go
glad
next,
I'm
yeah.
meeting your approval ratings, right? But
You're doing
one
good
is
so far, John. I approve.
if we look at where Infinite's come, right, and I think it would be fair to say, right,
Mhm.
there's been a few bumps in the road since launch, right? Like Craig notwithstanding,
Mm.
the community is thirsty for more. I think that's the gist, right? The foundation and the bones of what Infinite is great. But there's work to do, and the team knows that. 343 know that. But this is the moment now where the floodgates of creativity and imagination get unleashed, right?
Mm.
And I kind of wanted to talk about two different things, especially from I guess Forge's perspective, and another one other than my own. When you think about everything you've seen about what Infinite's Forge is capable of, NDA specific, we won't break it. Don't worry, Microsoft lawyers. What are you most excited for personally? So not excluding Forge Hub and everything else. When you think about what Infinite's Forge is going to be able to enable the community to go and do, what is getting you really, really excited? And what are you hoping to see happen? Like, is there a big wish list you got?
I I'd say I'm probably most excited for the mini games. Because like with they went into some of the stuff you can do in like the recent Forge fundamental videos of just like the giant leaps that Infinite has over Halo 5 with the scripting, and
Yeah.
to see what people were able to do with the scripting in Halo 5, it's like I'm really excited to see what happens in Infinite. I know I have a game mode that I want to try to bring back, and it's nothing too spectacular, but it's like sumo, essentially like a sumo with like grenades, explosions, and low gravity and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
But
silly fun.
yeah, yeah, because like I like that kind of stuff. So I'm really interested to see what people do um with scripting, and I know a lot of the people too at the studio are really excited for to see what the community comes up with, because they know that uh um the lifeblood of sustainability is Forge,
Yeah.
custom games. So
Yeah.
and definitely being able to come up with new types of modes and things is really helps the longevity of the game.
Well, how
Yeah.
long is like people just as Xbox gamers or gamers in general been asking Microsoft just to come up with some party games again? I mean, people still talk about what was that OG Xbox launch game?
Fusion Frenzy.
Yeah, Fusion
Oh,
Frenzy.
just
I mean, like people have been asking for party games and all this stuff for so long, and I'm just like, that's what you just mentioned there, Nick, was it's exactly what was going through my mind, is that this could just be like the party game maker, not just for Halo, but you just saw like like the racing, right? Like the things we saw somebody in one of the leaks trying to recreate like a Mario Kart type of thing.
Yep, yeah, I saw that too. Yeah.
Like even with the banana peel or whatever, like so that just opens up, a pun intended, infinite possibilities for gameplay types, and I am curious to see it does feel like there is all this opportunity, and it does feel like a little bit nebulous a little right now. Like you don't really know like where it can go, but it just feels like it could be really really special, right? If they know how to really get hold of some of the zeitgeist or bring some attention to some of these things. It seems like there's so much potential.
And Abe, what an incredible segue. Bringing attention, discovering content. How
Here we
might
go.
one achieve that? I wonder. But I mean, you're right, and let's cue Nick up to reveal and talk a little bit about what Forgehub is, what it does. If you haven't heard of it, maybe give a lift pitch, elevator pitch. I think for you Yanks,
Yeah, elevator
it's a
pitch,
lift.
yeah.
It lifts you up, right?
But it elevates you.
Oh, Yankees. But yeah, like I look at Infinite, and again, I won't spoil anything that I've seen behind the scenes, right, for fear of Microsoft lawyers and Unisec angrily messaging me. But I've seen stuff that I'm just like, no way, and we've seen stuff from the leaks build that is also like, no way, and it's like, okay, I don't think we really all understand, and I often think that Microsoft as a whole should really view Halo in a little bit more of a Minecraft lens, because
Mhm.
I'd argue the real heart of the game is not in HCS tournaments and
Yes,
in
I
Slayer and competitive and sweaty tryhards. We mentioned them earlier in the show. You know who you are. I say that with a tongue in cheek. I love 4v4 Arena, right? It's my lifeblood. But it's the custom games and the friendships and the laughs that can be made that is truly, in my opinion, the actual real lifeblood of Halo. And, we all wish really that Forge had released at launch, but
Mhm.
I am very glad that Forge has had the time to get to the level of it where it's at now, because the potential is off the freaking charts. But the real question is, how on earth are people going to find cool stuff? Nick, do you have anything you could share about a certain website that might be able to shed some knowledge on that subject?
Indeed, I do, Sick.
Indeed.
So yeah, indeed. So we so Forge Hub, for those that don't know, is kind of like the place to go for sharing maps in uh the Halo community. So like we have a giant database of where people can just post their maps, and others can go in there, bookmark them, or go to the download them off the, well, can't anymore. They have to kind of do a roundabout way since the Halo Waypoint decided to get rid of their file share thing. But we still have all the maps, so you can but yeah, it's just a place that of a collection of forgers, new and old, who get together and share their maps, and get together in lobbies, whole bunch of just all that aspects that come with the community.
Yeah.
So it's probably the easiest way
And
to play.
now, Forge Hub has been around for a while, right? I think it launched sometime after Halo 3.
Yeah,
Um,
think, do I have one at
I want
I
to
think it
say
was
2008, feels like.
2000. So 2007, I think, is when I found it. I think October 10th, 2007 is the earliest I've been able to find of when Forge Hub started, as like
Wow.
basically a blog post website.
That's
And
crazy.
so it's actually our 15 years, which I didn't realize, and I was like,
Holy
well,
crap.
shoot, we probably should have done something for our 15-year anniversary. But,
Well, I
Sorry,
think
Halo,
like, this is
Halo
good
3 skipped
memory.
its anniversary, so you can skip yours.
yeah, there you go. So
Yeah.
uh
But
yeah,
the site
15
itself
years.
hasn't had perhaps some modernization in some time, right? I think that's a fair
Yeah.
comment to say. It's
Oh yeah, it is.
much like
It is
how
old.
Halo 5 started to get a bit long in the tooth, as has Forge Hub. And I know you guys, we've got some stuff teased up that you provided us, so it's a little bit of a refresh, and then we'll show off some elements of the site as well on your behalf. So do you want to talk us through like what the plans are in terms of bringing Forge Hub, to a modern standard, and perhaps rejuvenating it for Infinite and the launch of Halo Infinite's Forge?
Yep. So yeah, for a while now, we've been wanting to update the website, and I think it's been going on for a long time. I think even when Sick was a part of the Forgehub team, we were talking about updating the
It's
site
true.
and things today. So it's been a long process. We are hoping to launch November 8th, same day as Forge. We wanted to launch a week ago, but uh, we have run into I'll preface this. We have run into a couple issues with unfortunately one of the main devs for the map section, really the most important section of our website, quit, I think like yesterday.
Uh-oh.
And didn't end up
Wow.
so we're struggling to try to make sure that it's ready for launch. If not, it will be a couple might be like a week or two, but we or it might be a little bit buggy. Also our dev team is they're based in the Ukraine. So
Tricky
at
times
the
for
beginning of
them.
the year, for those that are probably aware, big war broke out. So that also kind of hurt some of the development.
Yeah.
But on the bright side though, we actually now have some new designs. We could probably show the
new logo.
homepage. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're the logo. That's probably good. We decided with this new website that we wanted to go as do a new logo as well, update that because it hasn't been touched in a long time. So so we have a new logo, and we're currently going through the process of rebranding all of our stuff now, um, in anticipation for the launch as well. Um, but have oh, there we go. Yeah, I had to pull up the stream too to see what I was
See what we
looking
were
at.
doing. It'll be a
Yeah.
couple of seconds delay, but I think Jesse's got all of the stuff ready to rock
Yeah,
and roll.
you can tell me
so-
whichever one you want, and I will hit it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I had my giant notepad is up as a as essentially a light, so because it's pretty dark, I forgot to turn on the light, so I'm basically using the screen as impromptu light. So yeah, so our new logo there, pretty similar to what we've had in the past. We didn't want to stray too far from it. We there was definitely talks to like originally we were like, do we want to get rid of the monitor? I think in our old logo, the monitor was a part of the wording. So like that O used to be the actual monitor.
Yeah.
And we decided to kind of go a more modern route and keep the logo separate from the text so we can kind of use them both separately and independently of each other. So the logo is pretty similar to what our original one is, but it's a little bit more
Flat and
in line with
modern.
like it kind of like it has a little bit more of the current Halo aesthetic, or like the Halo 4 and 5 like Forerunner vibe with the like curves and all that.
Yeah. Less
Um,
marathon, less bungee monitor,
Yes.
and more 343 monitor. Makes sense.
Yes. Yep. And so then the website for the homepage, it's a lot different than what it looks it's going to look like from this is zoomed out too. I tried to get a lot of stuff in there so it won't be as weirdly spaced when I took the picture. But the landing page now is gonna present showcase a lot more of like trending maps. We're gonna have articles and stuff similar to how it is now with the articles being present, but we want to have a bigger focus on maps because that's essentially what our website is. This is like a place for you to share your creations.
That's what people want.
Yeah, so we wanted to have that stuff a lot more present. And then actually on the map page, we kept it a little bit similar to how how the layout is, but a little bit more modern with like the spacing and the square nature of everything.
Reminds me a little bit of the kind of the Xbox OS dashboard anyway, sort of
Yes.
tile driven, very image heavy, so people can see what they're downloading. And
Yep.
I noticed at the bottom there's a plan for popular authors as well, so people that get a lot of downloads, I presume your algorithm kind of goes, hey, these guys are getting a lot of downloads and pulls them up? Or do you guys have the ability to flag them as well and kind of like highlight authors you want to highlight manually and things like that?
Yeah, I think we'll be able to do that. I'm trying to remember like what some of the features were, because some of the stuff has been moving fast, or like it's a long
We
time
feel
ago.
your
and it's trying
pain. We feel your pain,
yes,
my man. We
trying to
do this
remember
a
like
lot.
yeah, trying to remember like what we have, because we might not have everything at launch, but we over the next few months we are planning to add more updates and stuff. We just want to try to make sure that we are there at the same time Infinite is, because we fear that's when we'll get a lot of traffic. So we want people to at least get used to the new site, and then we'll gradually roll out new features.
Of course.
But yeah, we want to try to go a lot more into the users, like popular foragers and stuff. We want to try to showcase them a bit more. I think we've talked about having badges on people's accounts. So like, if your map is in matchmaking, you'll have a badge that shows like that you made it in matchmaking, similar to
Is that
how you
badge
get
going to
the
cost
Thomas
$8
Rose.
a month though?
No.
Let's not open that one up.
Oh, how droll.
We need to make money somehow. No, all these badges stuff will be free. I mean, eventually there could be some kind of service that we try to charge people for. Who knows? That, I'll be honest, that we have floated that around, but I don't think we're gonna do anything like that. So badges, the maps there as well. I think we're gonna, similar to what the front page shows, we'll have like the most common ones, and probably like through that week or through the month. I think kind of similar to what they talked about in the Forge fundamentals of how they were going to showcase like people's creations and
like
stuff.
Popular, and which is like the most played within the last 7 days, and then
Yeah.
curated. So there's stuff that the Forgehub team will push of their own accord. They might have played it and reviewed it and all that sort of thing. Makes sense. So really give everybody a chance to showcase their stuff.
So Nick, how do you guys discover, or you specifically, like where is like the opportunities to bring things that maybe people wouldn't find elsewhere? Is it just getting just digging in and going through every map you can, or like what's that process like, curating this stuff?
If you don't respond with a Field of Dreams quote, Nick, I'm going to be really, I'm just going to be disappointed in you, right? You should just be super critical. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah, if you build it, they will come. My headset's starting to die. Honestly, I think the lobbies is probably where we find a lot of stuff. Okay. It's just like because that's where a lot of people come to show their creations, or they try to get people to play on new mini games or whatever they make. I think that's a good route. But probably also our biggest one too is because a lot of maps can get posted, so it would be a daunting task to go through each one.
I can imagine. Yeah.
But yeah, we utilize like social media, see what people are posting out there and what's getting traction. And then a lot of times our contest will help bring in a lot of creation stuff as well. Which is why we have such a good relationship with 343, is because a lot of people know that there's a good chance that if we were doing a contest, their map can end up in matchmaking. We cool. Essentially help curate. There's been times where we've partnered with 343 on a contest to generate content for playlists. And usually we're pretty upfront with that, about that at the start of those. And on occasion too, sometimes 343 will reach out to us and just be like, hey, it's like, can you guys like do a contest and generate some content? Yeah. Because one thing that we're good at is that we've kind of got the formula for it is running a Forge contest. Um, 343, I love them, but the Ghost in the Shell contest is wasn't regarded as one of the best, unfortunately. But it we love working with them on generating all that. So I think those areas would probably be the best. And like for me personally, a lot of it's probably the contest because I'm so heavily involved with the contests that
Okay.
that's where I find a lot of my favorites and stuff.
Yeah,
Well,
I
and
love.
you say
I love.
something. Oh, go ahead.
No,
John. You can
no,
go.
no. It's fine. You asked the last one. It's not a problem.
Oh, well, no, I mean, you say something that kind of stands out too. You mentioned, I've noticed this. Whether it's Forgehub or some other things out there, whether it's, sites that do the stats better than 343. Well, I mean, one of the cool things about having a passionate community that is, I don't know, millions deep or whatever, is that, there's just so much creativity, and that just I think it is great that they do partner, with people out in the community, because I think that actually can make Halo, and especially with this Forge, I just look at that landscape, right? What that could be down the road. And I think just like opening it up for people to become partners with them, to be part of the experience, really just it gives Halo kind of a special potential going forward that I think maybe doesn't exist in just your traditional game, where you just really whatever ideas and everything that exists within those few hundred developers at that studio is really all it is. And so, like, yeah, this is like so awesome, like some of the things you're talking about, because they are things that probably wouldn't have existed, right? The contest, the success with that, things like that wouldn't have been able to have that sort of presence if it weren't for your team. And and it's interesting to kind of think about that going forward. And I do wonder, like, when you guys sit around and talk about this, do you go like, hey, are we just scratching the surface, or is this like, is there like, maybe we don't even know what the opportunities are today that could exist, months from now, that we'll start thinking of? Like, do these conversations kind of exist within your team today?
Yeah. I would say so, just because I now with Infinite Forge coming out, we I think Saturday I asked the team, I'm just like, hey, do we want to get together to like really cement in our the next few months of what we want to do. And then I mean, I'm already thinking of stuff way down the line of projects and things I want to do with the team. um like next year I would love to around the anniversary of the 1 year anniversary of Forge, like I would love to do like a 12-hour or 24-hour stream or something, because we did that a few years ago.
That'd be
um
cool.
and it's like I would love to do that, and start trying to bring in like a bunch of other like partners and everything to try to get some kind of cool big events. Like we're trying to always grow. And actually, like one of the things that we established recently is making a Forge wiki, and we partnered with Halopedia to try to develop a Forge wiki, because it's something that the community doesn't really have.
Yep.
And it's and I think it's and historically it's been one of those parts of the process that 343 has looked to the community to handle. It's like
Yeah.
guides, tutorials,
If you're new to
stuff like that for
Forge,
Forge.
like I remember, I still during Halo 5, I would still load up the Forge Hub timings for the camera intro video from Psycho Duck back in the day, because I could never remember. Was it 3.5 seconds, and then 4 seconds, and then 4 seconds, and then 3.5? Like I'd always like quickly find that and load it up. So the idea of having a resource of reading material, of how-tos, of tutorial and guides on how this works and why you should do it this way, or this is best practice, yada yada, is immensely beneficial, right? Because if you're new to Forge, like, great, there's going to be some stuff. And again, I'm not going to reveal anything, because I don't think 343 have actually spoken specifically about some of this stuff. And I don't even know really if anyone in the leaked build has spoken about some of the design stuff, but there's going to be stuff that, you know, will help people when they're starting out to understand spacing and scale and how to build a play space in Forge, to kind of, you know, wet their beak a little bit. But beyond that, you're kind of like, whoa, what's next? And in the old days, oh, go speak to such and such. He runs a scripting guild, and he'll tell you, you know, maybe if you're lucky, if he likes the look of you, he might tell you how to do it if you catch him on a good day. Whereas the idea of having a book, almost like a Bible of here's how this stuff works, sounds immensely beneficial. So it sounds like a really, really good partnership to have with Halopedia on that front. I know that one of our friends as well in the community, they're doing a wiki as well. Nitro, I think, used to be on the Forgehub team. So it sounds like, as always, the community around Forge is stepping up to the oki, as we say, to really help bring this all to life. What does it look like in the new Forgehub? If I'm a creator and I'm going to go and share a new map, I'm not sure if the screenshot was shown, but I think we've got one. So this is just me segueing basically. But what's the actual process? So I'm a forger. I've made a cool new map. I want to go and share it on Forgehub. How does that workflow begin? Is it drag and drop? Could you talk a little bit towards that? Just, and maybe Jesse can throw up that screenshot for us if you'd be so kind, buddy.
Yeah, I think we have a couple of screenshots there. And I was trying to get, so I got these screenshots from essentially like our dev our dev website for those watching. So and I even have this is a later version, so it doesn't have everything too. It wasn't updated by the time I could grab these screenshots. But yeah, you have to have an account, so that way we don't get a whole bunch of spam. So you log in, and then I think on the left there, there you see kind of like that blue box. That is where, and I think actually in the other, it has like a little map. That's our submit map button. I think actually on the previous, or the screenshot after this one, I think is actually the first part of this. There we go. I think when I sent them, it like flipped those two pictures. But yeah, so we have the submit map button. So you would hit that, and it would kind of take you through a step-by-step. So you'll have to have a minimum amount of pictures. I forget what we set it at, I think, because I think we're going back and forth, but like I'll say like 3 pictures. That way you actually have something that people can look at. Once you go in there, you can add a description. You'll be able to add in like what mode, what Halo it's for, because we aren't just catering to Halo Infinite. We're catering to all sorts, all the other Halos out there.
Every Forge out there, basically.
Yep. And I think we are going to be implementing stuff specifically for mods as well. So we can start handling that part of the community as well. So you'll be able to select like what game it is, what mode. So if like say I have a 4v4 capture the flag map with all rockets that spawn on the map. It sounds like hell. But
sounds like fun. I'm gonna go build it.
So you would I would go in there, select like, here's all the maps that or here's the modes that it's good for, just CTF, it's 4v4, and then like the weapons that are on the map is just rockets, and then you can write a description of like what the map is, like, oh, this is a Forerunner themed CTF map. It's like really awesome. You should go check it out. Whatever you want to put in there. And then there's, I'm trying to remember. I think there's a few other things you might be able to add in to help specify the map a bit more. We'll have an area for you to put the link to your map as well, because so how Forgehub works is because we aren't integrated with with Halo, you have to provide a link to or a way to for people to go and like find your map. So usually what that would be like in the past would be you put your Halo waypoint link to your map, and it would redirect you to the Halo website where you can go and download and bookmark it. But so we'll see how it happens at launch for Infinite and for our website to see kind of how that whole sharing process will be. It might end up being a lot more manual. Like you might have, I think the workaround that we've had to do and tell people is you have to like uh, put the gamer tag that the map is saved in, so people can go and either add you or look you up in the in-game file browser in order to save the map. And then we'd also specify that, like to people to name their maps exactly how it is so people can find it.
Yeah.
So hopefully, though, it will be eventually it's just as simple as clicking a link to download the map. That would be awesome.
That'd be the dream. Yeah, like full API type integration.
Yep.
Mhm.
And we
That would be
have
nice.
and we have some people on the team now who are good with API work. So we're hoping that we can try to better integrate the two systems together, so we can actually like have a more user friendly experience. So after you input all that info, you hit submit, and it puts the map onto the map page, and from there anyone can see it and view it. And then I think like at the bottom here, so we have power-ups, basically like anything that can be found in the game we're going to have an option for, so that way people can tell us exactly what's going to be on your map, and you can share all that info. The Rock made this map, and if you go down
Thanks,
to the
Wayne.
reviews, the Rock isn't a very good map builder, as you can see from this example. The overall
that's
score
funny.
is bad. So we're actually gonna start having ratings for maps. So
Awesome.
so we're gonna kind of play around with it, see, because reviews and everything have always been kind of like this weird area of like we've had them on the old website, but sometimes people don't want to see like if because sometimes people can be kind of mean in reviews,
Yeah.
not just in Forge, but you go to any kind of
Any review.
Rotten
No,
Tomatoes or whatever.
If Jesse reviews your game and it has a lot of squishy things in it, it's probably not going to get. You
Yeah.
probably don't want to watch that one.
Yeah,
That's
0 out
true.
of 10 needs more water.
Real
And so
sneaky.
so yeah, we okay. So
Poor Scorn.
I wanted to play that one too. So we're gonna have like reviews and stuff that people can submit, and I think we're still I think right now we have it. I think it's out of 10, or it's been going back and forth so many times of like how we're gonna rate it, but it comes down to like we're gonna allow people to rate maps more in that kind of fashion, so people can kind of see like, oh, my map, and like people really love the art, but it's kind of sucks with gameplay. Like maybe I should go and try to make it better, do an update, and then post the map again or something like that. So so we'll see how it all works out. Like I said, we plan now that we have a more dedicated dev team to helping create our website. We will be able to do a lot more, hopefully do a lot more changes and adjustments, so that way we can make it better for the user experience, because anyone who uses our current site now knows like one of the big things is you can't search in there. Like that search function has been broke for years, and
Yeah.
unfortunately the dev team we had beforehand kind of like to do the minimum amount of work. So it's like we've been wanting to do changes for so long, and so it's nice to actually have
A good reason.
team that is a team that is actually like behind what we want to do. So because this it's been a long time coming for a nice site update.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, look, really appreciate you taking the opportunity and sharing a few teases, a few new glimpses into the future of Forgehub. I mean, we're less than a week away from Halo Infinite Forge being in everybody's hands.
Winter is
Um,
coming.
it is exciting. There's lots of renewed excitement around the game. I for one am looking forward to getting stuff out there, and just seeing what people make. Like, and having used Forgehub, I've used Forgehub since 2008, and I remember the days of you'd market your map, and if you were lucky in Forgehub, and then you'd have like some YouTubers like Forge Labs. He's 5 million subs on YouTube now. Forge Labs. He started reviewing maps, which you'd find on Forgehub. Right, that's where he got his name. He loved Forge, and now look, so Forgehub's been around 15 years, and it's about to start the next stage of its journey with bigger and bolder ambitions, with a much bigger and bolder Forge in tow. So it sounds to me like the sky's the limit for you guys. So it's super exciting times to see.
Yeah. So I did have another thing too to like tease as
Ooh.
well.
Oh,
So
the tease.
We were talking a lot about how we do contests and everything. So we do plan on doing a contest shortly after Forge releases, not the same day, because we want to make sure the website's all good and everything, and make sure people have time to kind of get used to Forge. Let the news settle down a little bit too before we go out and try to release. But a few weeks after Forge, we're going to do our first contest. And we wanted to make it go big. So if you want to guess how big the prize pool is this time around?
Oh my god, yeah, right. So just for the audience's reference and for listeners on the podcast after the show, when it goes live on Anchor, you guys pay $bucks as prizes, right? So none of this. Congratulations! Here's a forum badge. You lucky devil. It's cold hard $bucks. Go on, hit me up. Go big or go home.
Yeah, so we in the past we've done up to like I think $2,000 for contests. This time around for our first two contests, we were putting up $10,000.
Whoa! Jesus.
I need to find out what Warholic does for a living. And
yeah, just when he told us that, we're just like, what? are you sure? Did you add an extra zero by accident? Like,
wow.
So no, we we want to go big. So our first contest will be
crazy.
That's pretty big.
Yeah. Yep.
That's crazy, but very cool. Very, very cool.
So keep an eye out on our Twitter and stuff for the next few weeks. Probably be towards the later end of November, before we announce the details and get everything set. But yeah, and we're expecting it might bring in a lot of people, which means a lot of work, a lot of maps to go through.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I don't know if this is a tease too far, but do you know what the contest will be in? Because traditionally, you guys have done contests in various things, like teams doubles contest, team extermination contest, team slayer. Do you know what you might be landing on yet? Has that been decided? You don't have to reveal it. If you want to tease it, I'm just curious.
So, I'll say if people want to like dig in and look back at what we've done at when Forge has come out, it's probably a good indication. I don't want to say anything too much because we do like to keep it under wraps so that way people don't get too much of a head start and stuff. But it will probably be something along the lines of like traditional
cool
modes and everything.
So. Cool. So am I allowed to enter? I'll give you half.
Anyone's allowed to enter. Only people that we don't allow to enter are those who are judging, for obvious reasons. So it's keep an eye out for that. We're still hammering out the details, but we're pretty excited about it.
Sounds fantastic. Well, look, we're coming up on 2 hours, which I think was a little bit over what we thought this podcast would be, but there's been a lot of interesting chit chat and stories and discussions and sleeping in cars, the joys of video game development. So big thank you for coming on, man. Like it's been a pleasure, and it's really exciting to see what Forgehub's going to go and do next. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome to be on the podcast. It was like this was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
so thanks for having me.
Abe, this is Abe's gig. I've just fully taken over now, as you can tell.
Totally
But like I know these guys do it. Usually when there's a good Halo beat to do it around, but they have the coolest Halo podcast name ever. So I'm sure they would be more than willing to have more folks from Forgehub on to come and talk stuff and and do things like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Go ahead, Nick.
I was gonna say, like, I think you guys, we have a partner chat with you guys in our Discord. So, if you guys ever want to reach out or do something like that, I'm sure anyone on the team would love to come on and chat, especially after Halo comes out or after Forge comes out, when there's a lot more that we could talk about.
Of course. Yeah, exactly. Right. And, XboxEra as a team, we're similar passion. We wanted to go big. And we're building our empire. So we're glad to have a friend along for the ride as we see what these websites grow and these communities become. And as an Xbox focused website, there's going to be a lot of Halo fans in our forums that we can point in the direction for these contests and things like that. So we'll make sure we'll keep those beats synced up and locked together. Abe, not that I want to do your job, but man, do you want to maybe ask him to just do some shout outs, social media, geez, come on. I thought you hosted this thing regularly. Anytime. Am I just going to roll with it?
You know what? You seem to you have taken over. I'm just sitting back now. I'm just kind of chilling, but,
there, bam. He's now powerless. You can talk all you want.
Yeah. Well, Nick, go ahead first, I guess. Well, first, I do want to just reiterate something I said earlier, and really thank you for coming on the show. I do want to let you know that we definitely are going to take you up on having you or somebody else on your team back again. I think this is going to be fun to kind of explore along the way. And like I mentioned earlier, this Halo is very unique in that it is driven, for better and sometimes for worse, depending on the times and the communities. But it is a game that is really heavily community oriented, and I do think people like you and your team do a lot to enrich it. And it was awesome having you on today. And I really want to come back again when we're allowed to talk about everything that's out there. And it's it's really interesting because you were mentioning earlier in the Halo, the 2007 days, you guys were getting Forge to do things it was not supposed to. We're looking forward to seeing how you guys break it and force them to keep adding things again. And I want to thank you, and then just give you a chance to one last time kind of sell Forgehub, let people know where to find you, and tell them where they can see you next.
Yeah. So you can find us at forgehub.com. That's our main website, which will be updated soon, hopefully. And or at Forgehub on Twitter. We're pretty active on there. Shout out to our new social media team, Arter Bloodshot and Joe Valiant, who are doing a fantastic job out there. And then also a shout out to also our new admin, Captain Punch, who we mentioned Scripters Guild earlier. He
I remember.
He is doing a phenomenal job as well, helping. Actually, he's helping a lot with the wiki stuff. So I want to give a shout out to him as well. So yeah.
Top banana. I have no idea how I'm sounding through my microphone on this, and this is actually getting really hot, so I'm going to take that off. I hope you enjoyed that hilarity. But seriously, Nick, absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you for coming to hang out. To everybody watching and folks listening, make sure you review the podcast on Anchor or wherever you listen to it so that you can get us bumped up in the ratings. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed this chit chat. Go visit forgehub.com and check out their YouTube and all their social channels, and go follow Nick on Twitter because he's a lovely chap, as you've just seen and heard. It's right there. Look, he's pointing at it. But yeah, like absolute pleasure. We'll bail for now. The You Have Me at Halo podcast will be back, I guess, just
Next
after
Thursday.
There you go.
Yes.
Look, these
We're
are
back
awesome
next
numbers.
Thursday, 7 o'clock, 7:15ish, but it's not going to be our normal stream. We're going to be playing Halo co-op together as we talk about the winter update. But also,
Woo!
this Saturday, speaking of long streams, I'm doing the XboxEra Extra Life charity stream, starting probably around noon, maybe a little earlier. I've got over 40 game codes that are incentives, so you can donate and get yourself a handful of different games. Are all listed up over on our forum. You can find the post, and I got everything listed in there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Maybe some people will join me, maybe they won't. And I'm also going to produce the podcast in the middle of it, so that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't know how you're going to actually pull that off, but I'm
just going to open a second. I have two OBSs installed.
Okay. Good luck. Good luck, connection and technology.
I'm going to lower the bit rate on Twitch while I'm doing that.
Smart move. But look, absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming to hang out. And do you want to sign us out, Abe? You know, do the thing. Is there a thing like that you say at the end of the podcast? Like Nick says, "Ciao for now." Do you have like a buzzword to sign this thing off? Or?
No, I usually hand it off to other people to sign it off. So
okay.
I think we already did all that, though. We're good. Yeah, thanks everybody in the chat for joining us. We know this is an impromptu last second, and really appreciate you guys turning out. And stick with us because I think this is, a kind of a new beginning of a new journey. Also, if you guys want to hear, for whatever reason, if you want to hear John host more, he will be back on Saturday. So come check us out there and come check us out in our forums. So yeah, that's it, man. But thanks for coming, and we'll see you soon.
No worries. Bye, everybody.
See you in a week.
Bye.